All right, so you wanted to understand the core business model of Planet Labs PBC. Yeah. So today we're doing a deep dive into their public filings to try to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
We've got their 10K reports for 2023 and 2024, all the 10Qs they filed through the first 3 quarters of 2024.
Wow.
And even some interesting snippets from a legal agreement that I think shed some light on how they operate.
Oh, cool.
Planet Labs, just to remind you, is a space-based data analytics company.
Mm-hmm.
And their mission is to image the entire Earth every single day.
Right.
So they're trying to make global change visible, actionable, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable what they've accomplished. They've built this whole constellation of satellites that images the entire Earth every single day. It's like a constantly updating global mosaic.
Yeah. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
First things first. Revenue.
Yeah.
How does Planet Labs bring in the cash?
Their primary revenue stream comes from licensing rights to use their satellite imagery. So customers can buy these licenses in a couple of different ways.
Okay.
Some prefer what are called fixed price contracts, where they pay for access to the data over a specific period of time.
Right.
Others opt for usage-based agreements where they only pay for the data that they actually download.
Oh, so it's like choosing a data plan for your phone.
Exactly.
Go with unlimited or pay as you go depending on what your needs are.
Exactly. It gives customers that flexibility.
That makes sense.
And while they do offer some related services, things like data analysis, custom image processing, those are really secondary to their core business, which is providing access to this vast archive of imagery.
Got it.
Yeah.
So they're essentially a data company,
Mm-hmm.
not just a satellite company.
Right.
Now let's flip the coin and talk about costs. Keeping a whole fleet of satellites in orbit can't be cheap.
Right.
What are the big ticket items on Planet Labs' expense sheet?
You're absolutely right. It's an expensive business. Their expenses generally fall into 4 main buckets. The biggest one is cost of revenue.
Oh, yeah?
This includes basically everything directly related to capturing, processing, and delivering the data to customers. So you've got things like employee-related costs, you know, for the folks operating the satellites, processing the data, providing customer support. It's got depreciation of their satellites and ground stations.
It's a depreciation.
The amortization of intangible assets.
I was just thinking those terms might need a quick explanation.
Oh, you're right.
Not everyone listening is a financial expert.
Yeah, you're right. Not everyone's a financial expert.
Right.
So basically, these terms reflect the cost of using up assets over time.
Okay.
So depreciation is for physical things, like satellites, you know, they wear out over time, and amortization is for intangible things like patents or software. Companies spread these costs out over the useful life of that asset, so it's not just one giant expense all at once.
Right, so you don't just expense a satellite. You know, as soon as you launch it,
Exactly.
you sort of spread that cost out over its expected lifespan.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so besides keeping the satellites running, the data flowing, what other big expenses does Planet Labs have?
So another significant chunk goes to research and development.
Okay.
They're constantly innovating, launching new satellites with improved capabilities, developing new data analysis tools, just finding new ways to make their data even more useful for customers.
And this is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah.
Because Planet Labs isn't just launching like a few incredibly expensive satellites, right?
No.
They're doing something, I think, quite different.
They're doing something very different. They've adopted what they call an agile space systems strategy.
Okay.
It's a big departure from the traditional approach of building a few very expensive, long-lasting satellites.
Right.
Planet Labs focuses on launching a larger number of smaller, lower-cost satellites. This allows them to update their technology more frequently, be more responsive to customer needs.
So it's almost like the difference between a traditional car manufacturer and like a Tesla, which is constantly updating its software and features.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Yeah.
And this agile approach really has implications for their cost structure as well.
How so?
Their R&D spend is more akin to a software company that's constantly investing in its platform than a traditional aerospace company with those decades-long development cycles.
Right, so they're operating more like a tech company in that regard.
Exactly.
Okay, so they've got costs for operating their existing systems, developing new ones. What else?
Well, like any company, they need to reach their customers.
Of course.
So sales and marketing is another significant expense.
Right.
This includes everything from advertising, attending industry conferences, to building relationships with potential clients and educating them about all the different possibilities of Planet Labs data.
Makes sense.
Hmm.
And I imagine as a public company, they've also got all the usual general and administrative expenses.
Exactly. Things like compliance, legal fees, insurance, investor relations, all the essential costs of running a public company.
Yeah. All right. So we've got revenue coming in from imagery
Yeah.
licensing. We've got costs going out for satellite development, operations, marketing, administration. But why would customers choose Planet Labs over, other satellite imagery providers?
Yeah.
What makes their data so valuable?
Their core value proposition is really the combination of coverage, frequency, and accessibility.
Yeah.
They offer this unique data set that's global in scope,
Mm-hmm.
updated daily,
Wow.
and readily accessible through their online platform.
Right.
No other company can match the sheer volume and refresh rate of their data.
So it's not just about pretty pictures from space.
Right.
Right. It's about having a constantly updating view of the entire planet. Sure. That's a powerful tool for decision making.
Absolutely. Think about all the possibilities. Farmers can monitor crop health. Governments can track deforestation. Financial analysts can assess risk. The applications are practically endless.
Yeah, so it's more than just, we can see what the Amazon rainforest looks like
Right.
or something like that. It's like, no, we can see how it's changing
Yeah, exactly.
on a daily basis
Yeah,
and then make decisions accordingly.
that's the key. It's the change detection. That's
Yeah.
so valuable.
And that really seems to be where Planet Labs is focusing, right?
Absolutely.
It's that change detection.
Yeah.
So here's where it gets really interesting for me, I think. How does this all translate to concrete benefits for customers? What are some specific examples of how Planet Labs data is actually being used?
Oh, one compelling example is in the agricultural sector.
Okay.
Planet Labs data allows farmers to monitor crop health and identify potential issues
Yeah.
like pests or disease outbreaks
Okay.
before they become widespread. This leads to more targeted interventions, reduces pesticide use, and ultimately leads to higher crop yields.
So it's about making agriculture more efficient
Mhm.
and sustainable, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another great example is in forestry management.
Okay.
Planet Labs imagery allows organizations to monitor deforestation patterns, track illegal logging activities, and even assess the health of forests.
Wow.
This information is crucial for conservation efforts and for companies committed to sustainable sourcing practices.
Yeah, it's amazing to think that we can now monitor the health of our planet
I know.
from space
Yeah.
with this level of detail.
It really is a remarkable capability, and these are just a few examples. Planet Labs data is being used in countless ways, from disaster response and urban planning to infrastructure monitoring and even maritime security.
Yeah, so it really is applicable to so many different sectors.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've established that Planet Labs offers this valuable and unique data set,
Mm-hmm.
but what sets them apart from the competition? I mean, there are other companies out there with satellites.
Right.
Right.
Of course, but Planet Labs has a few key differentiators. First, it's that unmatched data frequency and coverage that we talked about.
Yeah,
They're imaging the entire Earth's landmass every single day.
every day.
Nobody else comes close to that.
Right.
No one else comes close to that level of coverage and that refresh rate.
Yeah.
And then there's their agile space systems strategy, which we touched on earlier,
Right.
that focus on launching numerous lower-cost satellites,
Mm-hmm.
means they can adapt to change much faster.
Right.
They're constantly iterating on their technology, launching new satellites with improved capabilities, ensuring they always have a very robust constellation in orbit.
Yeah, that's a clever approach, especially in a field where the technology evolves so rapidly. So
Absolutely.
they've got the data,
Mm-hmm.
they've got a way to collect it very efficiently.
Right.
But can customers actually use it easily?
That's where their data processing and platform comes in. Planet Labs delivers what they call AI-ready datasets. That means they've already processed the raw satellite imagery and made it easily usable for analysis with artificial intelligence and machine learning tools.
Oh, so they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting up front.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge time saver for their customers.
Absolutely. It removes a lot of the complexity and technical hurdles, making it much easier for customers to extract those meaningful insights from the data.
Yeah, I imagine that's a big selling point for them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about revenue, we've talked about costs, we've talked about their value proposition, what makes them different. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. What are the critical operational activities
Mhm.
that underpin their success? What do they absolutely need to get right to make this whole thing work?
Well, it all starts with the satellites.
Yeah.
They need to continuously design, launch, and operate these spacecraft to maintain and expand their constellation.
Mm,
Data continuity and coverage are everything in their business. Right. And then comes data processing and delivery.
right.
Turning raw satellite imagery into usable and insightful data is a very complex process.
Yeah.
It requires sophisticated processing pipelines, powerful cloud infrastructure, and efficient data delivery mechanisms.
That's a lot of moving parts.
It is.
What else is essential?
Customer support and success are absolutely crucial.
Okay.
I mean, they could have the best data in the world,
Yeah.
but it's useless if customers can't access it or understand it.
Right.
They need to make sure that users can effectively utilize Planet Labs' data and get the insights that they need.
Yeah.
This means providing excellent documentation, training resources, really personalized support.
It's all about that user experience.
Exactly.
Making it easy for customers to get value from the data.
Precisely. And in today's digital age, you can't forget about cybersecurity and data protection.
Of course not.
Protecting their data, platform, and customer information is absolutely paramount, given just how sensitive and valuable their assets are.
Yeah, imagine if someone hacked into their system and disrupted their ability to image the Earth.
Right.
The implications would be enormous.
It'd be a huge deal. The fallout from a major data breach could be devastating. Financial losses, legal liabilities, reputational damage, loss of customer trust.
So they must be investing heavily in cybersecurity measures.
They do have safeguards in place.
Yeah.
But they acknowledge that their systems are under constant threat from very sophisticated attackers.
Right, so it's a constant arms race almost.
It is. It really is.
Right, trying to stay one step ahead.
Exactly. It's a battle they absolutely cannot afford to lose.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've seen how Planet Labs makes money, where their costs come from, what makes their data so valuable. We've looked at how they differentiate themselves in the market and those critical activities that they need to really master to succeed.
Right.
What else can you tell me?
Well, to really understand Planet Labs, we need to understand the risks and challenges that they face.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Every business has them, and I think understanding these can really help grasp the full picture of the company's position.
Yeah, that sounds like a good place to stop for now
Okay.
and pick up the conversation in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good. You're right. Understanding the risks and challenges faced by a company like Planet Labs is, I think, crucial for getting a complete picture.
Yeah, let's dive right into those risks.
Mm.
Their public filings, I'm guessing, highlight some potential pitfalls, right?
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
And one that stands out is the possibility that the market for their products and services might not grow as quickly as they project,
Okay.
or even that potential customers might not adopt their platform as readily as hoped.
So even with a product as, I don't know, revolutionary as daily imagery of the entire Earth,
Right.
success isn't guaranteed.
Yeah, well, it's a good reminder that market adoption depends on so many factors, a lot of them outside their control.
Sure.
Competition pricing strategies, the general economic climate,
Yeah. Sure.
all these things play a role.
Yeah, true. What other risks did they flag?
So a significant one stems from their heavy reliance on complex technology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. Satellites, hundreds of miles above Earth.
Right.
Ground stations receiving massive data streams, software platforms that need to run flawlessly.
Yeah.
Any hiccup in this system could really snowball into disruptions that impact their ability to deliver the service.
Yeah, so what kind of, failures are we talking about here? Like a satellite veering off course or a software glitch? Help me visualize this.
Those are certain possibilities, yeah.
Hmm.
Their filings specifically call out the risk of ground operations infrastructure failure,
Okay.
interference with their satellite signals, and even, believe it or not, the risk of geomagnetic solar storms.
Solar storms, that's not your typical business risk.
It's very real, though. These storms can disrupt satellite communications and even damage sensitive electronics in space.
Wow. So how do they mitigate these risks? Do they have, redundancies,
Yeah.
backup systems in place?
Well, they do invest in redundancy and have various safety measures in place. Okay.
But, as with any complex system, unforeseen events are always a possibility.
Of course.
In fact, they acknowledge that they don't currently have a fully redundant backup production facility.
All right.
So if their primary data processing capabilities went offline, their operations and financial results could be significantly impacted.
Wow. That makes you think about how much we rely on these, intricate systems without even realizing it.
Right.
Okay, so Technology and market forces are two big areas of risk. Anything else?
Well, remember their status as a public benefit corporation.
Yeah.
That introduces some unique challenges.
Really? How so?
Their commitment to balancing profit with social and environmental impact is commendable, for sure.
Yeah.
However, it's a tightrope walk.
Mm-hmm.
They acknowledge there's no guarantee they'll achieve their public benefit purpose,
Right.
and even voluntary initiatives aimed at improving their ESG profile could be costly without having the desired effect.
It's a tough balancing act, isn't it? Keeping investors happy with financial returns.
While staying true to a mission that goes beyond just profit.
Exactly. And they also highlight the ever-evolving stakeholder expectations around ESG, often driven by factors beyond their control.
Of course.
This creates uncertainty, makes it tough to predict how their actions or statements might be perceived.
So they could make what they believe is a perfectly aligned decision,
Mm-hmm.
but it might not be interpreted that way by everyone.
Exactly. They could open themselves up to criticism,
Yeah,
reputational damage, even legal challenges, despite having the best intentions.
it's a minefield almost.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah.
Okay, so we've got market risks, technology risks, and the unique tightrope walk of being a public benefit corporation. Anything else keeping Planet Labs executives up at night?
In today's digital landscape, cybersecurity is a constant concern.
Oh, of course.
You know, they specifically mention the risk of security breaches or unauthorized access to their systems, platform, or products.
Yeah, given the volume and sensitivity of the data they handle, I imagine that's a top priority for them.
It is. Imagine someone accessing their satellite imagery archive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, governments, businesses, individuals, everyone would be on edge about the potential misuse.
The fallout from a major data breach could be, it could be devastating, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Financial losses, legal liabilities, reputational damage, loss of customer trust.
It'd be enormous.
Yeah, so they must be investing heavily in cybersecurity measures.
They do have safeguards in place,
Yeah.
but they acknowledge that their systems are under constant threat
Mm.
from some pretty sophisticated attackers.
Yeah, so it's a constant race, trying to stay one step ahead of the bad actors out there.
It really is. It's a battle they can't afford to lose. Now, while those are all external risks, things outside their control,
Right.
they also face some internal challenges,
Right.
areas where they could potentially stumble due to factors within their control.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. Let's dig into those internal challenges. Where might they sort of trip themselves up?
One area they highlight is protecting their intellectual property. Their success hinges on their proprietary technology, their data analytics capabilities, and even their brand.
Right, it's their secret sauce, what sets them apart.
Exactly. And they rely on a combination of legal agreements, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secret laws to protect it.
Sure.
But as with any legal framework, there are always loopholes and potential challenges.
Okay.
Someone could try to reverse engineer their tech,
Yeah.
infringe on their patents, or even steal their trade secrets.
Especially in a global market where, laws and enforcement vary so much.
Exactly. They acknowledge that enforcing their IP rights can be costly and time-consuming.
Right, so one internal risk is protecting that competitive edge. What else do they need to watch out for?
Another classic challenge, especially for a rapidly growing company, is
Yeah.
managing their finances effectively.
Mm-hmm. Did you spot any, red flags in their financial reporting?
Well, they do emphasize the importance of accurate financial reporting and the potential consequences if their accounting estimates prove incorrect. They point out that preparing financial statements, according to GAAP, requires management to make judgments and assumptions
Yeah.
that can significantly impact the reported numbers.
Right, it's not an exact science.
It's not.
Right.
Even with the best intentions, human error or unforeseen circumstances can lead to inaccuracies in their reporting.
Yeah, for sure. They also have these, complex revenue recognition models,
Right.
stock-based compensation plans, and all sorts of tax considerations,
Right.
all adding complexity to their financial reporting.
And if investors lose confidence in the financial statements, that could impact their stock price
Sure.
and make raising capital for future growth more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so managing financial reporting is one internal challenge. Any others?
Compliance with government regulations, particularly those related to their work with the U.S. government, is another crucial area.
Right. They're dealing with satellite imagery, which can have, national security implications.
Exactly. They operate under what's called the National Industrial Security Program Operating Manual,
Okay.
or NISPOM for short.
Okay.
It outlines strict security requirements for handling classified information.
So any misstep there could jeopardize their ability to work with government agencies,
Oh, absolutely.
which I imagine is a pretty significant part of their business.
It is. It is. And it's not just about having the right technology in place.
Right.
They highlight the challenges of obtaining and maintaining security clearances for their employees.
Yeah, that's a whole other layer of complexity.
It is. It's a long and rigorous process.
Sure.
And any lapse in compliance could really affect their ability to perform classified work.
It sounds like a delicate balancing act between, cutting edge technology
Yeah.
and these like really stringent security protocols.
It is. And they also discuss the inherent risks associated with international
Oh,
business.
of course. They
It-
operate globally, right?
They do.
Selling their products and services to customers worldwide.
Mm,
And that means navigating this maze of different laws, cultures, and business practices.
absolutely. What specific challenges do they mention?
Well, they call out compliance with anti-corruption, anti-bribery, and anti-money laundering laws,
Okay.
which can vary significantly between countries.
Of course.
And they acknowledge that expanding their international operations
Yeah.
increases the risk of violations, even unintentional ones.
Right. And those unintentional missteps can still lead to significant consequences.
Exactly. Fines, legal action, reputational damage, even lost business
Yeah,
opportunities.
exactly.
Mm.
It's high stakes. And they need to be incredibly diligent in ensuring their employees and partners understand and comply with all the applicable laws.
Compliance with all these diverse international regulations sounds like a major undertaking.
It really is.
Okay, so what other internal challenges should we be aware of?
They briefly mention the complexities of being a public company,
Yeah.
particularly the substantial financial and management resources needed to comply with the Sarbanes-Oxley Act.
Sarbanes-Oxley. Yeah, I've heard many a public company lament its stringent requirements.
Yeah.
But it's vital for maintaining investor confidence
Oh,
and
absolutely.
market integrity.
It is. They highlight the requirement for a management report on the effectiveness of their internal control over financial reporting,
Okay.
which their independent auditor also needs to attest to.
Right. So if they can't demonstrate effective internal controls,
Yeah,
it's a red flag for investors,
absolutely.
potentially impacting their stock price and access to capital.
It could raise doubts about the reliability of their financial reporting.
Right, for sure. Okay, so managing financial reporting is one internal challenge. Any others?
On a final note, they touch upon the importance of effective corporate governance.
Right, making sure the company is run ethically and responsibly with proper checks and balances.
Exactly. They highlight that their board of directors is responsible for overseeing the company's operations and protecting shareholder interests.
But remember, they're a public benefit corporation, so their board also needs to consider their public benefit purpose and the interests of other stakeholders.
Yeah, which can sometimes create tension,
Oh, for sure.
requiring difficult decisions where they need to weigh various factors
Yeah.
and potentially even face conflicts of interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered a wide range of risks and challenges that Planet Labs faces, both these external pressures like market conditions and internal hurdles they need to manage effectively.
It's a complex picture,
It is.
but it's important to note that every business faces challenges.
Right.
And Planet Labs seems to be tackling these head-on,
Yeah.
transparently disclosing the risks and outlining their mitigation strategies.
Yeah, I think their transparency is commendable, actually.
I agree.
It gives potential investors and customers a clearer picture, which I think ultimately builds trust.
It demonstrates a commitment to responsible business practices, which is always a good sign.
Now, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm
Okay.
curious about one thing that came up in our research. It's a legal agreement that provides a little glimpse, I think, into their internal operations.
Oh, interesting. What agreement is this?
It's an advisor agreement outlining the terms of engagement for an advisor to the company.
Okay.
What caught my eye was a section on protected activity.
Protected activity, what does that mean in this context?
It essentially means that the advisor isn't prohibited from reporting any illegal or unethical activities they observe within the company.
Ah, a whistleblower protection clause.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It explicitly states that the advisor is free to communicate with government agencies,
Wow.
file complaints, or cooperate with investigations,
Okay.
even if it means disclosing confidential information.
That's a strong statement.
It is.
It suggests that Planet Labs is really committed to ethical conduct and transparency, even if it means potential scrutiny.
Yeah, I think it's a really positive signal,
Yeah.
reassuring investors and stakeholders who might be concerned about corporate governance and accountability.
It definitely sets a good tone and demonstrates a willingness to prioritize ethical behavior over shielding secrets at all costs.
So to summarize this part of our deep dive, we've uncovered the many risks and challenges that Planet Labs faces, both external and internal.
We have.
But we've also seen signs of their commitment to transparency,
Yeah,
responsible business practices, and even whistleblower protection.
yeah. It's a complex landscape,
It is.
but it paints a picture of a company striving to do things the right way while navigating this rapidly evolving industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to continue exploring further?
Absolutely. There's still so much more to uncover about Planet Labs. Let's move on to part 3 of this deep dive.
All right, so let's continue our exploration of Planet Labs.
Okay.
I think it's time we talked about their journey to becoming a publicly traded company.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that they went public through a SPAC, right?
Yes, that's correct. In 2021, Planet Labs merged with DMY Technology Group, Inc. for a special purpose acquisition company, or SPAC.
SPAC, right?
Yeah.
SPACs have gained popularity, I think, as an alternative to traditional IPOs,
They have.
especially for companies in, these burgeoning industries like space technology.
Exactly.
I've heard the term SPAC, but I'm still a bit fuzzy on how it all works.
Okay.
Can you give me a quick refresher?
Certainly. In essence, a SPAC is a shell company that raises capital through an IPO with the sole purpose of merging with a private company and taking it public.
Okay.
So think of it as like a faster track to entering the stock market.
So instead of going through the usual IPO process,
Right.
Planet Labs just teamed up with this SPAC, DMYIV,
Right.
and just like that, they were listed on the exchange.
Exactly. For Planet Labs, this was a strategic decision that allowed them to access public markets more rapidly and with, I think, less regulatory scrutiny than a traditional IPO.
That's interesting. But I've also heard some criticisms about SPACs.
Mm-hmm.
Something about, like, less stringent due diligence and potentially inflated valuations.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that?
There's some validity to those concerns. SPACs have indeed faced scrutiny, and there have been instances where post-merger companies haven't lived up to their initial projections.
Right.
It's not a guaranteed path to success.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so considering all that, how has Planet Labs fared since going public via this SPAC route?
It's a bit of a mixed bag, as
Mm.
is often the case, in a volatile market.
Sure.
Their stock price has fluctuated, and they're not yet profitable.
Okay.
However, they've continued to grow their revenue, expand their customer base, and they consistently launch new satellites.
So it sounds like they're making progress, but still facing the typical growing pains of a public company
Yeah,
in a really dynamic and evolving industry.
I'd agree with that assessment. Yeah, it's too soon to definitively judge their long-term success, but
Right.
their journey is definitely one worth watching.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've covered a remarkable amount of ground in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've explored Planet Labs' revenue model, their key expenses, the unique value they offer to customers, and what sets them apart in this, increasingly competitive market.
Absolutely.
We've even examined the various risks and challenges they face and their, rather unique path to becoming a publicly traded company.
Yeah, it's been a fascinating exploration of a company that's really pushing the boundaries of what's possible with space technology.
I completely agree. And before we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought to ponder.
Okay.
Planet Labs' mission, right, revolves around making change visible and actionable.
Mm-hmm.
As we gain access to increasingly vast amounts of data about our planet from satellites, sensors, and countless other sources,
Right.
how can we use this information to address some of the world's most pressing challenges?
Yeah.
How do we ensure that this data is used responsibly, ethically, and for the benefit of all?
Those are crucial questions,
They are.
and ones that deserve deep consideration.
It goes beyond, I think, the business of Planet Labs
It does.
and speaks to the broader impact of technology on our world.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been my pleasure.
And to our listener, we encourage you to explore Planet Labs' website and public filings for even more information.
Yeah, great resources.
Keep learning, stay curious, and until next time, happy diving.